I used to believe that love was something you found once and protected forever, like a flame you'd cup your hands around in the wind. I thought marriage meant safety, partnership, two people walking the same road. I thought harsh words were temporary storms that passed with apologies in time. I believed in the version of us I'd built in my head, the version where we'd grow old together, where our daughter would see what real love looked like. But on the night my husband told me I'd become ugly after having our baby, something fractured inside me that I didn't know could break. And when the phone rang 3 hours later to tell me he'd been in an accident, that he might never walk again, I realized I didn't know anything about love at all. What I thought would destroy us became the only thing that could save us. But first, it nearly killed me. The real story began months earlier, though I didn't see it then. If you've ever wondered whether love can survive when everything falls apart, stay until the end of this story. And if you believe some marriages are worth fighting for even when it's easier to walk away, consider subscribing. This one changed how I see everything. I met Caleb on an ordinary Tuesday at a bookstore downtown. He was reaching for the same copy of a biography I'd been eyeing for weeks, and when our hands touched the spine simultaneously, he smiled and said I could have it. I told him we could share it. He bought 2 copies instead and wrote his number inside the front cover of mine. That was Caleb back then, generous in small ways, thoughtful without needing credit for it. He worked in finance, talked about his parents with obvious affection, and had this way of listening that made you feel like whatever you said actually mattered. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. No grand gestures, no public spectacle. Just the 2 of us on his couch after dinner, and him saying he couldn't imagine a future that didn't include me. I said yes before he finished the sentence. We got married 4 months later in a ceremony that felt right, surrounded by people who actually knew us. I wore a dress I loved, he cried during his vows, and for a while everything felt exactly like I'd hoped it would. The first year of marriage was good. Not perfect, but good. We argued about small things, whose turn it was to do the dishes, how much time he spent working late, whether we should get a dog. Normal things. He was building his career, and I was finishing my graduate program in education. We talked about starting a family someday, but someday felt comfortably distant. We had time. We had plans. Then I got pregnant. It wasn't planned, but it wasn't unwelcome either. I remember sitting on the bathroom floor staring at the test, feeling this strange mix of excitement and terror. When I told Caleb, he went very still for a moment, then pulled me into a hug and said we'd figure it out together. And I believed him. I believed we were ready, that love would be enough, that we'd rise to meet this new chapter the way couples in movies always seem to. Pregnancy was harder than I expected. Not just physically, though the exhaustion and nausea were relentless, but emotionally. I watched my body change in ways that felt both miraculous and alienating. Caleb tried to be supportive, but I could see something shift in him too. He started working longer hours, staying late at the office more frequently. When I asked him about it, he'd say he was trying to make sure we were financially secure before the baby came. It sounded reasonable. It sounded like what a responsible husband and father should do. But there was a distance growing between us that I couldn't quite name. He stopped asking how I was feeling. Stopped rubbing my feet at night or reading parenting books with me. When I tried to talk to him about baby names or nursery colors, he'd nod and say whatever I wanted was fine. It felt like I was planning for this baby alone, like he was already somewhere else even when he was sitting right next to me. I told myself it was stress. New job pressures. Normal adjustment to impending fatherhood. I made excuses for both of us because acknowledging the truth felt too frightening. The truth was that we were drifting, and neither of us knew how to stop it. Noah, our daughter, though we didn't know she'd be a girl yet, arrived 3 weeks early. Labor was long and complicated, and by the time they placed her in my arms, I was so exhausted I could barely cry. But Caleb cried. He stood beside the hospital bed with tears streaming down his face, and for a moment I thought we'd be okay. I thought this tiny person would pull us back together. The first 2 months were a fog. Noah didn't sleep more than 90 minutes at a stretch. I was healing from a difficult delivery, trying to figure out breastfeeding, drowning in laundry and diapers, and the relentless cycle of feeding and soothing and changing. Caleb went back to work after 2 weeks. He'd come home exhausted, eat dinner in silence, and disappear into the bedroom while I stayed up with the baby. When I asked for help, he'd hold her for 20 minutes and then hand her back saying she wanted me, not him. I stopped recognizing myself in the mirror. My body felt like it belonged to someone else, softer, rounder, marked with stretch marks that hadn't faded. I wore the same 3 pairs of sweatpants because nothing else fit. I couldn't remember the last time I'd washed my hair properly or worn makeup or felt remotely human. But I was keeping a tiny person alive, and that had to count for something. Caleb barely looked at me anymore. When he did, there was something in his eyes I couldn't quite read. Disappointment, maybe. Or resentment. I tried talking to him about it one night after Noah finally fell asleep. I asked if he was okay, if we were okay. He said he was fine, just tired. I didn't push. I was too tired to push. The night it all fell apart started like any other. I'd made dinner, nothing fancy, just pasta and salad, while wearing Noah in a carrier because she'd scream if I put her down. Caleb came home late again. He barely greeted me, just dropped his bag and headed for the shower. I set the table, got Noah settled in her swing, and waited. When he sat down, I tried to make conversation. Asked about his day. He gave one-word answers. I could feel the tension radiating off him, but I didn't know what I'd done wrong. We ate in silence for several minutes while Noah fussed in the background. I was so tired I could barely taste the food. Then Caleb looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You became ugly after the baby." I remember the words hitting me like cold water. I remember my fork stopping halfway to my mouth. I remember the way my whole body went numb and hot at the same time. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I just sat there, frozen, while he pushed back from the table and walked out of the room. A minute later I heard the front door slam. Noah started crying harder. I picked her up on autopilot, bounced her, whispered soothing sounds I didn't feel. I moved through the motions of cleaning up dinner, giving her a bath, getting her ready for bed. My mind felt detached from my body, like I was watching myself from somewhere far away. The words kept replaying. Ugly, ugly, ugly. I'd known he'd been distant. I'd known something was wrong between us. But I hadn't expected that. I hadn't expected him to take everything I was insecure about, everything I was struggling with, and weaponize it. I hadn't expected cruelty from the man who'd once written his phone number inside a book and called it fate. Noah finally fell asleep around 9. I put her in the crib and stood there watching her breathe, this perfect little person who didn't ask to be born into a marriage that was falling apart. I thought about calling my best friend Claire, but I didn't know what I'd say. I thought about calling Caleb, but I didn't trust my voice. Instead, I went to our bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and waited for him to come home so we could have it out. The phone rang at 11:13. I didn't recognize the number. Almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. "Is this Eleanor Whitmore?" A woman's voice, professional, calm. "Yes, this is St. Catherine's Hospital. Your husband Caleb Whitmore was brought in following a motor vehicle accident. You're listed as his emergency contact." The room tilted. "Is he okay?" A pause. "He's stable, but you should come as soon as possible. Are you able to get here safely?" I don't remember saying yes. I don't remember hanging up. I remember the phone slipping from my hand and the sound it made hitting the floor. I remember thinking this couldn't be real, that this was some kind of cosmic punishment for the anger I'd felt just hours earlier. I remember my legs giving out and everything going dark. I woke up on the floor with Noah crying in the next room. My phone was buzzing. 3 missed calls from the hospital. I pulled myself up, got Noah, called Claire in a panic. She was at my house in 15 minutes. I barely explained, just thrust the diaper bag at her and drove to the hospital going 20 miles over the speed limit the entire way. The emergency room was bright and cold. A nurse directed me to a waiting area and said a doctor would be with me shortly. Shortly turned into 40 minutes. I sat in a plastic chair with my heart trying to climb out of my throat, replaying the last thing Caleb had said to me. Ugly. Was that really going to be the last conversation we ever had? Was I going to lose him with that hanging between us? When Dr. Hartman finally came out, I stood up so fast I felt dizzy. He was older, maybe mid-50s, with kind eyes and a careful expression. Mrs. Whitmore? How is he? Can I see him? Your husband is stable. The accident caused significant trauma to his spine. We've done imaging and consulted with our neurosurgery team. He paused, and I knew what was coming before he said it. The damage was severe. He has no sensation or movement from the waist down. I'm very sorry. The words didn't land right. I heard them, but they didn't make sense. What does that mean? Will he walk again? It's unlikely. The injury is complete, which means unlikely or impossible? He met my eyes. I can't say impossible, but you should prepare yourself for the reality that this is permanent. He's going to need extensive support and rehabilitation. I asked to see him. Dr. Hartman hesitated, then said Caleb had asked not to see anyone yet. Not even me. Especially not me. I went home at 3 in the morning. Claire was asleep on my couch with Noah in her arms. I stood in the doorway watching them, feeling like my entire life had shattered in the span of a few hours. Claire woke up and immediately pulled me into a hug. I still didn't cry. I couldn't. The tears were stuck somewhere deep inside where I couldn't reach them. The next 2 days were a blur. I called Caleb's parents, who drove up from 2 states away. I fielded calls from concerned friends and coworkers. I arranged for family leave from my job. I took care of Noah while trying to process the fact that my husband was lying in a hospital bed refusing to see me. His mother, Margaret, arrived and immediately took over, sweeping into the hospital with the kind of authority that made nurses step aside. She emerged from his room an hour later looking grim. He's devastated, she said. He won't talk to anyone. Won't eat. Just stares at the ceiling. Did he ask about me? I hated how small my voice sounded. She looked at me with something I couldn't quite identify. Pity, maybe. Ellie, I think you should prepare yourself. Caleb is going to need time. A lot of time. This is going to change everything. I know that. I'm not sure you do. She softened slightly. You have a baby to think about. You're young. You didn't sign up for this. I stared at her. I signed up for in sickness and in health. Ellie, I'm not leaving him. She didn't argue, but I could see in her face that she thought I was being naive. Maybe I was. Maybe I didn't understand what I was committing to. But the alternative, walking away while he was broken and alone, felt impossible. They finally let me see him on the 3rd day. A nurse warned me he wasn't doing well emotionally, that I should keep the visit short. I walked into his room with my heart in my throat. Caleb was lying flat in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling tiles like Margaret had said. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. When he heard me come in, he turned his head away. Caleb. My voice cracked. I'm so sorry. Don't. The word came out harsh. Don't apologize. This isn't your fault. Then talk to me. Please. What do you want me to say, Ellie? That I'm fine? That everything's going to be okay. He laughed, bitter and hollow. I can't feel my legs. I can't move them. Do you understand that? I'm 29 years old and I'm never going to walk again. The doctors said. The doctors don't know anything. He was still looking at the wall, refusing to meet my eyes. You should go home. Take care of Noah. You don't need to be here. I want to be here. Well, I don't want you here. The words landed like the slap he'd delivered 3 nights ago at the dinner table. I stood there for a long moment, waiting for him to take it back, to look at me, to give me anything. But he just kept staring at the wall, jaw clenched, and I realized he meant it. I left. I cried in the parking lot for the first time since it happened. Just sat in my car and sobbed until my chest ached and my eyes were swollen. Then I drove home, fed Noah, and tried to figure out how to survive this. The weeks that followed were the hardest of my life. Caleb stayed in the hospital for rehabilitation, learning how to navigate the world from a wheelchair, how to do basic tasks with limited mobility. I visited every other day, bringing updates about Noah, trying to make conversation. He barely spoke to me. When he did, it was usually to tell me to leave, that I didn't need to keep coming. But I kept coming anyway. Friends started pulling me aside with concerned looks. Claire was the most direct. Ellie, you know I love you, but you're allowed to be angry. He's treating you like garbage. He's in pain. That doesn't give him the right to push you away. You have a 3-month-old baby. You're exhausted. You need support too. I made vows, Claire. So did he. And then he told you that you were ugly and walked out. I flinched. That was before the accident. Yeah, and now you're using the accident as an excuse to forget how badly he hurt you. She grabbed my hand. I'm not saying leave him. I'm saying don't lose yourself trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. I knew she was right. But I also knew I couldn't walk away. Not yet. Not while there was still a chance we could find our way back to each other. Margaret was less subtle. She cornered me at the hospital one afternoon and told me I was being foolish. That Caleb would need round-the-clock care, that our lives would never be normal again, that I was too young to spend the rest of my life as a caretaker. She said it with kindness, like she was trying to save me from myself. You have options, Ellie. No one would blame you. I would blame me. You're thinking with your heart, not your head. Maybe my heart knows something my head doesn't. She looked at me sadly. You're going to regret this. Maybe she was right. But I couldn't shake the feeling that walking away would be the real regret, the thing I'd never forgive myself for. Caleb came home after 6 weeks. We'd converted the downstairs guest room into a bedroom for him since he couldn't manage the stairs. I'd installed grab bars in the bathroom, rearranged furniture to accommodate the wheelchair, ordered medical supplies. The house looked different, felt different. Nothing was the same. The first night he was home, I made dinner and brought it to his room on a tray. He looked at it like I'd handed him poison. I can feed myself, Ellie. I know. I just thought. I don't need you to take care of me like I'm helpless. I didn't mean. Just go. Please. I left the tray and walked out, feeling like I'd failed some test I didn't know I was taking. Living with Caleb in those early months was like living with a stranger. He was cold, distant, angry at the world. He snapped at me for small things, for moving something he needed, for asking how he was feeling, for existing too loudly in his space. I tried to give him room, tried to be patient, but it was like walking on glass every day. One wrong step, and everything shattered. Noah was the only thing that softened him. When she cried, he'd call out asking if she was okay. When I brought her into his room, he'd watch her with something almost like tenderness. But the moment I tried to engage with him, the walls went back up. One night, about 2 months after he came home, I was up late with Noah trying to soothe her through a rough night. She'd been crying for an hour, and I was at my breaking point. I heard Caleb's voice from the other room. Bring her here. I carried Noah into his room. He was sitting up in bed, looking exhausted. Give her to me. I hesitated. Are you sure? Ellie, just give her to me. I placed Noah in his arms. He held her carefully, adjusted her position, and started humming something low and tuneless. Within minutes, she quieted. Within 10, she was asleep. I stood there watching them, this broken man and this tiny baby, and felt something crack open in my chest. You're good with her, I whispered. She doesn't know I'm broken yet. His voice was flat. Give her a few years. She'll figure it out. Caleb, you should get some sleep. I'll hold her for a while. I wanted to argue, to make him see that he wasn't broken, that Noah would love him no matter what. But I was too tired. I just nodded and went to bed. Weeks turned into months. The routine became familiar in its bleakness. I took care of Noah, helped Caleb with what little he'd allow, worked part-time from home. We barely spoke beyond logistics. He'd thank me sometimes, in a voice devoid of warmth, and I'd nod and leave the room before the silence could suffocate me. I lost weight I didn't have to lose. My hair started falling out from stress. I stopped calling friends back because I didn't know how to explain what my life had become. I was a wife to a man who wouldn't look at me. A mother to a baby who needed more than I had to give. A ghost in my own house. Claire kept showing up, forcing me to leave the house for coffee or walks. She never said I told you so, but I could see it in her eyes. She thought I was drowning. She was right. You can't keep doing this, she said one afternoon while we watched Noah sleep in her stroller. You're disappearing. I'm fine. You're not. You're running on empty, and he's not even trying to meet you halfway. He's dealing with his own stuff. So are you, Ellie. You had a baby. Your husband told you that you were ugly. Then he almost died, and now he treats you like you're the enemy. When do you get it matter? I didn't have an answer. That night, Caleb and I had our first real fight since the accident. I'd asked him to try physical therapy again. He'd quit after 3 sessions, saying it was pointless. He snapped that I didn't understand what it was like, that I couldn't possibly know what he was going through. I snapped back that he wasn't the only one suffering, that I was drowning too, and he didn't seem to care. You think I don't care? He wheeled closer, eyes blazing. You think I want this? You think I want to be stuck in this chair while you run around playing martyr? I'm not playing anything. I'm trying to keep us alive. Well, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should just leave like everyone expects you to. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter anymore. That's not an answer. Fine. You want an answer? He looked at me with something like hatred. Yeah, maybe you should go. Take Noah and go build a life with someone who isn't broken. Find some guy who can give you what you deserve. Because I can't. I can't be a husband. I can't be a father. I can't be anything. I felt something inside me finally break. You told me I was ugly. The night of the accident. You looked at me and said I became ugly after having our baby. He went very still. Do you remember that? Because I do. I remember every word. And then you left, and I thought that might be the last thing you ever said to me. And it almost was. My voice was shaking now. You think I'm here out of pity? You think I stayed because I felt sorry for you? I stayed because I made a promise. Because I still believe in the person you were before everything fell apart. But I can't keep fighting for us alone. I can't keep loving someone who won't let me. Caleb stared at me for a long moment. Then he turned his chair around and went into his room. The door closed. I stood there in the hallway, shaking, and wondered if I'd just ended my marriage. I almost left that night. I packed a bag, got Noah ready, stood by the door with my keys in my hand. But then I heard something from Caleb's room. A sound I'd never heard before. He was crying. Not quiet tears. Deep, wrenching sobs that sounded like they were being torn from somewhere inside him. I stood frozen, listening to my husband fall apart on the other side of the door. Noah stirred in my arms, reaching her small hand toward the sound. I unpacked the bag. I didn't go into his room. I didn't knock or try to comfort him. I just let him cry, let him finally release whatever he'd been holding in since the accident. And when the sound finally stopped, I went to bed and slept for the first time in weeks. The next morning, Caleb was in the kitchen when I came down with Noah. He'd made coffee. There were 2 cups on the table. I'm sorry. He didn't look at me when he said it. For what I said. that night before the accident. And for how I've been treating you since. I sat down slowly. Okay. It's not okay. None of this is okay. He finally met my eyes. I was angry about the pregnancy from the start. Not at you. Not at Noah. Just at the timing, the pressure, the fear of not being good enough. I felt like I was failing before I even started. And then when you were pregnant, I saw you changing and I felt guilty for noticing, guilty for caring about something so shallow when you were growing our baby. But I couldn't stop. Every time I looked at you, I saw everything I was losing. The life we had before. The freedom. The version of you that was mine before she was a mother. I didn't interrupt. Just listened. And the night I said that, I'd had the worst day at work. I'd been passed over for a promotion I was counting on. I was drowning in money stress and dad stress and husband stress, and when I came home and saw you in those sweatpants with spit up on your shoulder, I took it out on you. I wanted to hurt you because I was hurting. And it's the worst thing I've ever done. It was cruel, I said quietly. It was unforgivable. I don't know if I can forgive it yet. But I'm trying. He nodded. The accident didn't make me a better person. It just made me more of what I already was. Angry. Bitter. Afraid. I've been punishing you for still being whole when I'm not. For still having choices when mine were taken away. You have choices too. Do I? Because it feels like everything was decided for me the second that car hit mine. You get to choose how you treat me. How you show up for Noah. Whether you give up or keep fighting. I reached across the table but didn't touch him. You get to choose whether this destroys us or makes us stronger. I don't know how to be strong anymore. Then let me be strong for both of us until you figure it out. He looked at me for a long time, and I saw something shift in his face. Not hope, exactly. But maybe the beginning of it. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. It wasn't a movie moment. There was no dramatic music, no passionate reunion. We just sat there drinking coffee while Noah babbled in her high chair, two broken people trying to figure out if they could build something new from the pieces. Things didn't magically improve after that conversation. But they did change. Caleb started going back to physical therapy. Not because he thought he'd walk again, but because he wanted to be as independent as possible. He started seeing a therapist who specialized in trauma and disability. He started talking to me again, really talking, not just snapping or withdrawing. We started couples therapy too. It was awkward at first, sitting in that small office trying to explain our situation to a stranger. But our therapist, Dr. Chin, had a way of cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of things. You're both grieving, she said in our third session. Caleb, you're grieving the loss of your mobility, your independence, the future you thought you'd have. Ellie, you're grieving the marriage you thought you'd have, the partner you expected, the support you needed. Neither of you is wrong. But you're grieving separately, and that's killing you. She taught us how to grieve together. How to hold space for each other's pain without trying to fix it. How to communicate needs without blame. How to remember that we were on the same team even when it felt like we were enemies. Slowly, things began to shift. Caleb started holding Noah more, playing with her, talking to her about everything and nothing. I watched him become a father in real time, watched him discover that being in a wheelchair didn't make him less capable of loving his daughter. He started looking at me differently too. One night, about 8 months after the accident, I was getting ready for bed when he wheeled into the bathroom doorway. You're beautiful. I turned, sure I'd misheard. What? You're beautiful. I should have been saying it every day for the past year. I should have been saying it when you were pregnant and glowing. When you were up all night with Noah and still managed to smile. When you stayed even though I gave you every reason to leave. He moved closer. I was wrong. That night, I was so completely wrong. I felt tears prick my eyes. Caleb, I became paralyzed that night, Ellie. But the truth is, I was already broken. I'd been breaking for months, piece by piece, and I was too proud to admit it. Too scared to ask for help. I thought being a man meant being strong all the time, providing everything, never showing weakness. And it nearly destroyed us. We're still here, I whispered. Because of you. Because you loved me when I didn't deserve it. Because you saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. I knelt down in front of his chair so we were eye level. I saw the man I married. The one who bought 2 books instead of 1. The one who cried when our daughter was born. He was still there. You just forgot for a while. He reached out and touched my face, gentle, tentative, like he was afraid I'd pull away. I didn't. I leaned into his palm and let myself cry, finally, for everything we'd been through. I love you, he said. I never stopped. Even when I was too broken to show it. I love you too. Even when I wanted to run. Even when it hurt. We stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other, remembering what it felt like to be close. The months that followed weren't easy. Healing never is. But we were doing it together now as partners instead of adversaries. Caleb started taking on more with Noah. Bath time became his job, bedtime stories, weekend mornings so I could sleep in. He started cooking again, adapting recipes and tools to work from his chair. He started smiling more, laughing at Noah's antics, teasing me the way he used to. We started dating again. Real dates, where we hired a babysitter and went out to dinner, or the movies, or just drove around talking. We started holding hands. Started sleeping in the same room again. Started rebuilding intimacy in ways that worked for us now in this new version of our life. It wasn't the marriage I'd imagined. It was harder, messier, required more work and patience and grace. But it was also deeper, more honest, built on a foundation of real struggle instead of naive hope. Noah took her first steps at 13 months. Caleb cried watching her toddle across the living room into my arms. Later that night, when she was asleep, he told me he used to resent that he'd never walk with her, never chase her around the yard, never teach her to ride a bike the way his dad had taught him. But I can still teach her things, he said. Different things. Important things. I can teach her that people are more than their bodies. That love is a choice you make every day. That broken doesn't mean useless. You're not broken, I said. I am. But I'm also healing. We both are. He was right. We were healing. Not perfectly, not quickly, but genuinely. Margaret apologized to me eventually. She came over one afternoon and found Caleb and Noah having a tea party on the floor, him making ridiculous voices for her stuffed animals while she giggled. She pulled me aside and said she'd been wrong, that she'd underestimated both of us, that she was sorry for suggesting I should leave. You saved him, she said. When everyone else would have run, you stayed. You fought for him. I fought for us, I corrected. He had to fight too. We both did. Claire told me I looked different. Lighter. More like myself. She was right. Somewhere in the process of rebuilding my marriage, I'd found parts of myself I'd lost. My strength. My voice. My ability to set boundaries and demand better. Caleb and I still argue. We still have hard days. There are still moments when the weight of everything feels impossible. But we've learned how to fight without destroying each other. How to love through the hard parts instead of running from them. On our 5th wedding anniversary, Caleb surprised me. He'd hired Claire to watch Noah and set up a candlelit dinner in our backyard. Nothing fancy, just pasta and wine and string lights and music. We danced, him in his chair and me standing beside him, swaying to old songs and laughing at how ridiculous we probably looked. I have something for you, he said when the song ended. He handed me a small box. Inside was a necklace with 3 tiny pendants, one for me, one for him, one for Noah. We're a team, he said. The 3 of us. Whatever comes next, we face it together. I put the necklace on and kissed him, this man who'd broken my heart and then helped me put it back together. This man who'd learned humility the hard way. This man who'd chosen to fight for us even when it would have been easier to give up. Together, I agreed. Noah is 3 now. She's bright and funny and completely fearless. She climbs onto Caleb's lap and demands stories. She helps him cook dinner by dumping ingredients into bowls with more enthusiasm than accuracy. She doesn't see her father as different or less than. She just sees him as dad. We have a good life. Not the one I planned. Not the one I would have chosen if someone had offered me options. But it's ours. Built from ashes and apologies and hard-won understanding. Built from choosing each other every single day, even when it hurt. People ask me sometimes how I did it. How I stayed. How I forgave. They say it like I'm some kind of saint, but I'm not. I stayed because leaving felt worse. I forgave because holding on to anger was killing me. I fought because giving up meant losing something I wasn't ready to lose. Marriage isn't about perfection. It's not about finding someone who never hurts you or never fails you. It's about finding someone worth fighting for, someone worth forgiving, someone worth growing with even when growth is painful. Caleb isn't perfect. Neither am I. We're two imperfect people who decided that together we could build something stronger than either of us could alone. We're two people who learned that love isn't just a feeling you fall into. It's a choice you make. Every day. Sometimes every hour. And sometimes, when everything else falls apart, that choice is the only thing holding you together. But it's enough. It has to be. And for us, it is. If this story made you think about love differently, if it reminded you that broken things can be rebuilt, that hard doesn't mean impossible, then maybe it was worth sharing. Maybe your story is different. Maybe you're in the middle of something hard right now and you don't know if you should stay or go. I can't tell you what to do. But I can tell you that whatever you choose, choose it consciously. Choose it with your whole heart. Don't stay out of fear or obligation. Don't leave because it's easier. Choose what honors you and the person you're trying to become. And whatever that choice is, own it completely. Your life is yours to build. Make it count.